You are not broke because you lack money. You are broke because you lost control. Debt is not a math problem. It's a behavioral one. And until you confront that truth, no budget, no side hustle, and no motivation will save you. This audiobook is not about shortcuts. It's about ending the cycle permanently. We will dismantle the habits, emotions, and excuses that keep you trapped. Because the moment you regain control, debt loses its power. And today that process begins. Chapter 1. Stop treating debt like an emergency. Debt feels urgent. That's not an accident. Urgency is what keeps you weak. An emergency forces reaction. Reaction kills thinking. And when you stop thinking, you lose control. That's the trap. Most people don't stay in debt because they're irresponsible. They stay in debt because they're panicking. They're constantly reacting, jumping, grabbing, rushing. They see the balance. Their chest tightens. Their mind screams, "Fix this now." And that feeling, fear, becomes the decision maker. That's the key. Debt itself is not the problem. Your response to it is. You have a choice. You can treat debt like a fire, something that must be handled immediately, emotionally, recklessly. Or you can treat it like a system failure, something that requires calm analysis and deliberate correction. Most people choose fire. They panic. They consolidate without understanding. They borrow to escape pressure. They chase quick fixes. And every rushed move adds another layer to the problem. Calm creates control. Control creates progress. Say it again. Calm creates control. Control creates progress. If you don't slow down, you will never get out. Debt thrives on urgency. Because urgency shuts off discipline. Think about the decisions you made under pressure. Not just with money, with anything. How often were those decisions smart? How often were they emotional? How often did they cost you more later? That's not a coincidence. Panic is expensive. When you're desperate, you accept bad terms. High interest. Long timelines. Short-term relief. You tell yourself, "I'll fix it later." Later never comes. Because you didn't fix the behavior. You just quieted the feeling. It's not about debt. It's about emotional regulation. That's the key. Most people aren't drowning in numbers. They're drowning in shame. Shame makes you hide. Shame makes you rush. Shame makes you avoid looking clearly. You check your account with one eye closed. You avoid statements. You delay facing reality. Then guilt builds. Pressure builds. And eventually, you explode into action. Wrong action. You throw money at the problem without a plan. You sell something you shouldn't. You borrow again. You promise yourself this is the last time. It's not. Because nothing changed. You didn't need speed. You needed stability. You have a choice. Right now, you can decide to stop treating debt like it's attacking you. Debt doesn't move. It doesn't chase you. It just sits there, waiting for you to react badly. And if you keep reacting, it keeps winning. This chapter is about one decision. Slowing down. Not ignoring debt. Not avoiding it. Not pretending it's fine. But refusing to let fear dictate your next move. That's discipline. It's not about motivation. It's about restraint. Most people think progress comes from doing more. Making more calls. Moving faster. Taking action immediately. That's wrong. In debt, progress comes from stopping first. Stopping emotional decisions. Stopping emergency thinking. Stopping self-punishment disguised as responsibility. You don't need their permission to slow down. You don't need a bank's approval to think clearly. You don't need society's validation to take control quietly. That's the key. Calm creates control. Control creates progress. Here's what calm actually looks like in practice. Calm means you don't make financial decisions when you're emotionally activated. If your heart rate is up, the answer is no. If you feel shame, you wait. If you feel desperate, you pause. That's not weakness. That's intelligence. You delay decisions by 24 hours. Not to procrastinate, but to regain control. You write things down instead of carrying them in your head. Because anxiety lives in ambiguity. You face the full picture, numbers included, without trying to fix anything yet. Observation before action. That's discipline. It's not about being fearless. It's about being steady. Most people want relief. Relief is short-term. Control is long-term. Debt recovery is not dramatic. It's boring. It's quiet. It's methodical. And that's why it works. If you've been rushing, let me be clear. You weren't failing because you didn't try hard enough. You were failing because you tried while panicking. That's the difference. You don't escape debt by sprinting. You escape by walking consistently in the right direction. That's the key. Now here's the hard truth. As long as you see debt as an emergency, you will keep making emergency decisions. Emergency decisions are never strategic. They are never optimal. They are never disciplined. They are emotional. And emotion is expensive. It's not about how fast you pay it off. It's about whether your behavior has changed. Because if behavior doesn't change, debt returns. Always. You have a choice. You can stop today. Not paying everything. Not fixing everything. But stopping the panic. From now on, debt does not get to rush you. Debt does not get to scare you. Debt does not get to dictate your behavior. You dictate the pace. That's control. And control, not money, is the foundation of freedom. In the next chapter, we're going to confront something even more uncomfortable. Because once you slow down, you're forced to see the truth. Not the numbers. The pattern. You stop treating debt like an emergency. Now it's time to face the behavior that keeps recreating it. Chapter 2. Admit the pattern, not the numbers. You're looking at the wrong thing. It's not the balance. It's not the interest rate. It's not the total. Those numbers feel important because they're visible. They're loud. They create pressure. But they are not the cause. Debt is not a balance. Debt is a loop. And if the loop stays intact, the numbers always come back. That's the key. Most people think the goal is to pay it off. That's not the goal. That's a checkpoint. Because you can clear the balance and still be broken. You have a choice. You can obsess over numbers. Or you can confront the behavior that keeps recreating them. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. Many people have already paid off their debt once. Some of them twice. Some of them 3 times. And they're still here. Why? Because nothing changed internally. They attacked the numbers. They ignored the pattern. And the pattern won. If the pattern survives, the debt returns. Say it again. If the pattern survives, the debt returns. That's not pessimism. That's reality. Think about your history. Not this debt. All of it. When did it start? What triggered it? What was happening in your life when it grew? Stress? Instability? Low income? Emotional pressure? Trying to keep up? Trying to escape? Debt doesn't appear randomly. It shows up at predictable moments. Moments of weakness. Moments of transition. Moments of avoidance. That's the pattern. But instead of studying it, most people distract themselves with math. They say, if I can just get this number to 0, I'll be fine. No, you won't. Because 0 doesn't teach discipline. 0 doesn't build awareness. 0 doesn't fix behavior. 0 just removes the evidence, temporarily. That's the key. It's not about debt. It's about repetition. Same emotions. Same reactions. Same coping mechanisms. Different numbers. You don't need their permission to admit this. You don't need to blame yourself. You don't need to feel ashamed. You need to be honest. Honesty is leverage. Most people avoid patterns because patterns feel personal. Numbers feel neutral. Safe. Objective. Patterns force responsibility. And responsibility is uncomfortable. But discomfort is where control begins. You have a choice. You can keep asking, how much do I owe? Or you can start asking, why does this keep happening? That's a different question. A more dangerous one. And a more useful one. Here's what patterns usually look like. You get stressed. You spend to cope. You feel behind. You borrow to catch up. You feel deprived. You reward yourself. You feel shame. You avoid tracking. You feel pressure. You rush decisions. Different people. Same loop. That's the key. The loop doesn't care about your income. Plenty of high earners are drowning. Plenty of low earners are stable. Because stability is behavioral, not numerical. It's not about how much you make. It's about how you respond. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. Say it clearly. It's not about knowledge, it's about consistency. It's not about motivation, it's about rules. It's not about numbers, it's about patterns. You have a choice. You can keep proving you can fix debt, or you can become the kind of person who doesn't recreate it. Those are not the same thing. Fixing debt is a task. Breaking the pattern is an identity shift. One is temporary. The other is permanent. That's the key. Now let's talk about real behavior. Here's what admitting the pattern actually means in practice. It means you stop telling yourself stories. Stories like, I had no choice. It was an emergency. I deserved it. It won't happen again. Those stories protect the pattern. You don't eliminate debt by lying to yourself more politely. You eliminate it by telling the truth without emotion. You write down when you spend impulsively. Not the amount. The trigger. You note what you were feeling. What you were avoiding. What you wanted relief from. This is not therapy. This is strategy. Awareness breaks loops. That's the key. You don't need to punish yourself. You don't need to relive guilt. You don't need to spiral. You just need to see clearly. Because once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. An interruption is power. Most people try to change outcomes. They ignore inputs. Patterns are inputs. Change the input, the output changes automatically. If the pattern survives, the debt returns. But if the pattern dies, debt has nowhere to grow. You have a choice. You can keep fighting symptoms. Or you can eliminate the cause. And here's the hard part. Patterns don't disappear because you want them to. They disappear because you replace them. That means new rules. New responses. New defaults. When stress hits, you don't spend, you pause. When pressure rises, you don't borrow, you plan. When emotion spikes, you don't react, you delay. That's discipline. It's not about being perfect. It's about being predictable. Predictable behavior creates predictable results. Chaos creates debt. That's the key. If you only focus on numbers, you'll always be surprised when debt comes back. If you focus on patterns, nothing surprises you anymore. And when nothing surprises you, nothing controls you. You're no longer fighting debt. You're managing behavior. That's a higher level of control. You don't need their permission to step into that level. You don't need approval. You don't need validation. You need honesty and consistency. Admit the pattern. Not to feel bad, but to gain leverage. Because the moment you see the loop clearly, you're no longer inside it. You've stepped outside. And once you're outside, you can choose differently. That's freedom. You've stopped reacting to debt as an emergency. You've stopped worshiping the numbers. Now you're ready for the next problem. Because even when people see the pattern, there's one behavior that keeps it alive. Emotional spending. You admitted the loop. Now it's time to cut the fuel. Chapter 3. Separate survival spending from self-sabotage. Not all spending is equal. Some spending keeps you alive. Other spending keeps you stuck. If you don't learn the difference, debt will always find a way back in. That's the key. Most people don't go broke buying food. They go broke buying relief. Relief from stress. Relief from boredom. Relief from pressure. Relief from feeling behind. That's not survival spending. That's self-sabotage with a receipt. You have a choice. You can keep telling yourself, I needed it. Or you can learn to tell the truth. Survival spending is simple. It's boring. It's predictable. Food, shelter, utilities, basic transportation, healthcare. These things keep your life functioning. Self-sabotage spending is emotional. It spikes. It justifies itself. It shows up when you're tired, stressed, or insecure. And it always sounds reasonable in the moment. That's the danger. Comfort spending feels good now and costs you later. Say it again. Comfort spending feels good now and costs you later. That's the pattern. Most people never separate these two categories. They lump everything together and call it expenses. That's lazy thinking. And lazy thinking keeps you trapped. It's not about being cheap. It's about being clear. Clarity is discipline. That's the key. Here's what self-sabotage spending looks like. You had a hard day. You deserve something. You feel behind. You try to catch up with a purchase. You feel anxious. You scroll. You buy. You feel deprived. You reward yourself. Different emotions. Same outcome. More debt. You don't need their permission to stop this. You don't need approval. You don't need to explain yourself. You need awareness. Because until you separate survival from sabotage, you'll keep funding your own problems. You have a choice. You can keep reacting to feelings. Or you can install rules. Rules remove emotion from decisions. That's discipline. It's not about willpower. It's about structure. Most people ask, "Can I afford this?" That's the wrong question. The right question is this keeping me alive or keeping me stuck? That's the key. Let's be very clear. Survival spending does not excite you. It doesn't give you a dopamine hit. It doesn't feel like relief. That's how you know it's necessary. Self-sabotage spending feels urgent. It whispers, "Just this once." It promises comfort. And it always lies. Comfort spending never solves the problem that caused it. It delays it. Then it adds interest. You have a choice. You can stop pretending that emotional relief is a need. Or you can keep paying for it for years. Here's a hard truth. Most people don't have an income problem. They have a boundary problem. They let emotions vote on money decisions. That's chaos. Money cannot be democratic. It needs a dictator. And that dictator must be disciplined. That's the key. So what do you do, practically? You divide your spending into two columns. Not fixed and variable. Not needs and wants. Those labels are too easy to manipulate. You label them honestly. Survival. Self-sabotage. No gray area. Groceries to cook at home? Survival. Takeout because you're exhausted and avoiding the day? Self-sabotage. Basic phone plan? Survival. Upgrading because you're bored? Self-sabotage. Transportation to work? Survival. Impulse shopping to feel in control? Self-sabotage. This is not moral. Strategic. That's the key. You're not a bad person for self-sabotage spending. You're a human under pressure. But pressure without rules creates damage. You don't eliminate self-sabotage spending by shaming yourself. You eliminate it by interrupting it. You pause. You wait. You delay. Delay is a weapon. Comfort spending only works if it's immediate. Delay breaks its power. You have a choice. When the urge hits, you don't decide. You postpone. 24 hours. Not forever. Not denial. Just delay. If it's survival, it will still be there. If it's sabotage, it will lose its grip. That's discipline. It's not about restriction. It's about control. Comfort spending feels good now and costs you later. But discipline feels uncomfortable now and saves you later. Pick your discomfort. That's the key. Most people choose short-term comfort and long-term pain. Disciplined people choose short-term discomfort and long-term peace. You don't need their permission to choose differently. You don't need to keep living reactively. You can decide that from now on, money does not regulate your emotions. That's maturity. Here's another truth. Self-sabotage spending thrives in vagueness. If you don't track triggers, you repeat them. If you don't name patterns, they control you. So you write it down. Not how much you spent. Why you spent. What you were feeling. What you were avoiding. This isn't journaling. It's reconnaissance. You're studying the enemy. And the enemy is not money. It's emotional avoidance. That's the key. Once you separate survival from sabotage, everything changes. Your budget becomes realistic. Your progress becomes predictable. Your confidence returns. Because you're no longer confused. Confusion keeps people stuck. Clarity creates momentum. You have a choice. You can keep calling everything necessary, or you can start being honest and regain control. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. You will still slip sometimes. That's human. But now you'll know the difference. And when you know the difference, you recover faster. Self-sabotage loses power when it's exposed. That's discipline. You've stopped treating debt like an emergency. You've admitted the pattern. Now you've separated survival from sabotage. But there's still one problem left. Because even when people know what they're doing, they still keep doing it. Why? Because money has been doing a job it was never meant to do. Regulating emotions. You learned what not to spend on. Now it's time to understand why you were spending in the first place. Chapter 4. Stop using money to regulate your emotions. Most people don't spend because they need things. They spend because they're trying to escape feelings. Stress, boredom, insecurity, loneliness, pressure. Money becomes the escape hatch. That's the problem. If money controls your mood, debt controls your life. Say it again. If money controls your mood, debt controls your life. That's the key. You don't wake up planning to sabotage your finances. You wake up carrying emotion. Unprocessed emotion looks for relief. And money is fast. It's immediate. It's socially acceptable. It doesn't ask questions. Swipe. Click. Buy. Temporary calm. Then reality returns, stronger than before. That's the loop. You have a choice. You can keep using money as emotional medication. Or you can learn to feel without spending. One leads to control. The other leads to debt. Most people never connect the dots. They think they have a budgeting problem. They don't. They have an emotional regulation problem. That's the key. Look at when your worst spending happens. Not payday. Not sales. Moments. After arguments. After long days. After feeling behind. After feeling small. Money becomes a way to feel something different. More powerful. More in control. More rewarded. More distracted. But money was never meant to do that job. And when you force it to, it breaks you financially. It's not about spending. It's about avoidance. Say it clearly. It's not about lack of knowledge, it's about lack of emotional discipline. It's not about income, it's about coping. It's not about desire, it's about relief. You don't need their permission to admit this. You don't need to justify it. You need to see it. Because what you don't see controls you. That's the key. Stress spending is common. But common doesn't mean harmless. When stress hits, your brain wants certainty. Control. Immediate payoff. Money gives the illusion of all three. But only for minutes. Then the bill comes. Then the shame. Then the pressure. And pressure creates more stress. That's how debt compounds emotionally before it compounds financially. If money controls your mood, debt controls your life. You have a choice. You can keep numbing emotions. Or you can build tolerance for them. Tolerance is discipline. Most people think discipline means force. Restriction. White-knuckling. Wrong. Discipline means staying present when it's uncomfortable. Not escaping. Not soothing. Not reacting. Just staying. That's hard. That's why most people don't do it. They'd rather pay interest. Here's another truth. Boredom destroys more finances than greed ever will. Boredom makes you restless. Restlessness seeks stimulation. Stimulation costs money. You scroll. You compare. You consume. Not because you want things. Because you want feeling. Excitement. Distraction. Movement. But every boredom purchase trains your brain to expect reward for discomfort. That's dangerous. Life is uncomfortable by default. If you teach yourself that discomfort must be fixed with spending, you create a permanent dependency. That's the key. Insecurity is even worse. Feeling behind. Feeling judged. feeling invisible. Money becomes a way to signal worth. To yourself. To others. New things. Better things. Shiny things. But insecurity doesn't disappear when you buy. It waits. Then it asks for more. You have a choice. You can keep buying confidence. Or you can build it. Bought confidence is rented. Built confidence is owned. Debt is the rent you pay for emotional avoidance. Let that sink in. Now let's talk about what actually changes this. Not motivation. Not guilt. Systems. You don't stop emotional spending by promising yourself you'll do better. That's useless. You stop it by changing what happens before the spending. You create a pause. When emotion spikes, you do nothing with money. Nothing. No browsing. No cart. No decision. You delay. Delay is discipline. Emotions peak and fall. Spending locks them in. If you wait, the urge weakens. Always. That's the key. You also need replacement behaviors. If money is no longer allowed to regulate your emotions, something else must. Movement. Writing. Silence. Walking. Breathing. Not exciting, but effective. You don't need their permission to choose boring solutions. Boring works. Debt thrives on drama. Control thrives on simplicity. Say it clearly. It's not about emotion, it's about response. It's not about feeling bad, it's about acting differently. It's not about comfort, it's about control. You have a choice. You can let emotions dictate financial behavior. Or you can decide that emotions are information, not commands. That's maturity. Here's a simple rule. If you're emotional, you don't spend. Period. No exceptions. No negotiations. Rules remove debate. Debate drains discipline. That's the key. Most people lose money because they negotiate with themselves. I'll just look. I'll decide later. I deserve it. Every negotiation weakens control. Strong people don't argue with themselves. They follow rules. Not because they're rigid. Because they value peace. If money controls your mood, debt controls your life. But when emotions lose control over money, freedom starts. You stop chasing relief. You stop buying distraction. You stop renting calm. And something unexpected happens. Your emotions stabilize. Because you're no longer training them to demand payment. You become steady. Steady people don't panic. They don't spiral. They don't sabotage. They act deliberately. That's the foundation of financial recovery. You've learned to stop treating debt like an emergency. You admitted the pattern. You separated survival from sabotage. Now you've removed emotion from money. But there's still a mistake many people make next. They think earning more will save them. It won't, if the leaks are still there. You learn to control behavior. Now it's time to protect progress. Chapter 5. Cut the leaks before you increase the flow. More money will not save you. That's the lie people cling to. If I just earned more, everything would be fine. No, it wouldn't. Because income does not fix behavior. It amplifies it. A bigger bucket means nothing if it's still leaking. Say it again. A bigger bucket means nothing if it's still leaking. That's the key. Most people who are drowning in debt are convinced the problem is flow. Not enough coming in. Too much pressure going out. But pressure is not the issue. Leakage is. Money doesn't disappear. It escapes through habits. And when income increases, those habits don't shrink. They expand. You have a choice. You can chase more income. Or you can control what already passes through your hands. Only one creates stability. Look at the real world. People get raises, promotions, better jobs. And 6 months later they're still broke. Why? Because spending rose to meet income. Comfort upgraded. Convenience expanded. Standards inflated. Same discipline. Bigger numbers. Same result. That's the pattern. You don't need their permission to accept this truth. You don't need to defend your ambition. Wanting more is not the problem. Leaking more is. That's the key. Leaks are rarely dramatic. They're quiet. Subscriptions you forgot. Convenience fees you tolerate. Impulse upgrades you normalize. You tell yourself, it's not that much. That sentence has ruined more finances than bad luck ever did. Small leaks drain big buckets. Say it clearly. It's not about income, it's about discipline. It's not about opportunity, it's about boundaries. It's not about earning, it's about retaining. You have a choice. You can let money pass through you, or you can make it stay. Here's the dangerous part. When income increases, people relax. They stop tracking. They stop questioning. They stop saying no. Because pressure feels lower. That's when leaks explode. You start paying for convenience instead of value. You outsource effort. You buy time with money you don't actually have. That's not freedom. That's complacency. And complacency invites debt. A bigger bucket means nothing if it's still leaking. Real example. Someone earning just enough watches every dollar. Tracks everything. Feels the weight. They get a raise. Relief hits. Guard drops. They upgrade housing. They upgrade lifestyle. They upgrade habits. Now their expenses match the new income. Any setback sends them right back into debt. Nothing changed internally. That's the key. More money without discipline is just faster self-sabotage. You don't need their permission to slow down your lifestyle. You don't need to prove anything. Quiet control beats loud income. So what do you actually do? You audit ruthlessly. Not emotionally. Strategically. You don't ask, can I afford this now? You ask, would this survive under pressure? If income dropped tomorrow, would this still make sense? That question exposes leaks immediately. That's the key. You remove anything that exists purely because you got comfortable. Comfort is expensive. Subscriptions that don't create real value. Convenience spending that replaces basic effort. Lifestyle upgrades that feed ego, not stability. This is not punishment. It's protection. You're sealing the bucket. You have a choice. You can wait for more income and hope discipline magically appears. Or you can build discipline now and let income work for you later. Only one compounds. Here's another hard truth. Most people don't need more money. They need fewer decisions. Leaks exist because money decisions are constant and reactive. The solution is automation and rules. Rules remove temptation. Automation removes effort. You decide once. Not daily. That's discipline. It's not about control, it's about simplicity. Every leak you seal increases your margin. Margin creates breathing room. Breathing room creates clarity. And clarity is dangerous, in a good way. Because once you see how much money you actually have when leaks are sealed, excuses disappear. That's the key. If you increase income before fixing leaks, you train yourself to rely on more instead of better. That's fragile. Strong systems don't depend on growth to survive. They function under pressure. You have a choice. You can build a system that only works when things go well. Or one that holds when they don't. Debt punishes fragility. Discipline creates resilience. A bigger bucket means nothing if it's still leaking. Say it one last time. A bigger bucket means nothing if it's still leaking. If you don't seal the leaks now, future income will vanish just like past income did. But when you fix them, something shifts. Money stops feeling urgent. Decisions slow down. Confidence grows. You're no longer chasing relief. You're building control. And control is the real wealth. You've stopped emotional spending. You've cut the leaks. You've stabilized the system. Now you're ready for something most people never reach. Rules. Not motivation. Not hope. Rules that remove emotion entirely. You've protected the bucket. Now it's time to lock it. Chapter 6. Replace motivation with non-negotiable rules. Motivation is unreliable. It shows up late. It leaves early. And it disappears the moment life applies pressure. If your financial plan depends on motivation, it will fail. That's not opinion. That's pattern recognition. Rules beat willpower every time. Say it again. Rules beat willpower every time. That's the key. Most people think they need to feel ready to change. Feel inspired. Feel disciplined. They're waiting for a mood. Discipline is not a mood. It's a structure. And structure does not negotiate. You have a choice. You can keep hoping motivation saves you. Or you can install rules that work even when you don't feel like it. Only one survives reality. Motivation works when things are calm. Rules work when things are hard. Debt exists because people negotiate with themselves. I'll start next month. Just this once. I deserve it. I'll make it up later. Every sentence is a crack in the system. And money leaks through cracks. That's the key. Strong financial behavior is boring, predictable, repetitive. No drama. No hype. No inspiration quotes. Just rules. It's not about being strict. It's about being consistent. Say it clearly. It's not about willpower, it's about environment. It's not about motivation, it's about systems. It's not about intention, it's about execution. You don't need their permission to build rules. You don't need approval. You don't need to explain yourself. Rules are private. They're quiet. They protect you from yourself. Here's the truth most people avoid. When emotions enter money decisions, discipline leaves. Rules remove emotion. That's why they work. A rule is a decision you made once, while calm. So you don't have to decide again while emotional. That's the key. Here's what bad systems look like. Try to spend less. Be better this month. Watch your budget. That's not a system. That's hope. Hope does not survive stress. Rules do. Now let's talk about what rules actually look like. Not complicated. Not restrictive. Simple. Clear. Non-negotiable. Rule 1. No emotional spending. If you're stressed, tired, angry, or bored, you don't spend. Period. No browsing. No carts. No just looking. Emotion equals pause. That's discipline. Rule 2. Every purchase waits 24 hours. Not because you're poor. Because you're strategic. Urgency is the enemy. If it's necessary, it will still make sense tomorrow. If it's impulse, it will fade. Rules beat willpower every time. Rule 3. Money moves automatically. Savings first. Debt second. Spending last. You don't rely on self-control at the register. You remove the money before temptation appears. That's intelligence. Willpower fails in the moment. Automation wins before the moment exists. That's the key. Rule 4. No lifestyle upgrades without margin. More income does not mean more spending. It means more control. Upgrades require proof. Proof of stability. Proof of discipline. Not excitement. This rule alone keeps people out of debt. You have a choice. You can let income dictate lifestyle. Or you can let discipline dictate growth. Rule 5. No financial decisions under pressure. Pressure creates bad deals. When urgency appears, you stop. You wait. You review. Debt thrives on rushed decisions. Rules slow you down. That's protection. Here's what rules do that motivation never will. They remove debate. Debate is where discipline dies. Every time you argue with yourself, you lose energy. Every time you justify, you weaken the rule. Strong people don't argue with themselves. They follow systems. That's not rigidity. That's freedom. You don't need their permission to choose structure over chaos. Rules don't care how you feel. They care about results. And results compound. Most people fear rules because they think rules mean deprivation. Wrong. Rules create peace. Because once rules are set, the decision is done. No guilt. No overthinking. No regret. Just execution. That's the key. Rules beat willpower every time because willpower gets tired. Rules don't. Willpower depends on mood. Rules depend on commitment. And commitment outlasts emotion. Say it again. Rules beat willpower every time. If you've failed before, it's not because you're weak. It's because you were negotiating. You were relying on motivation in a system that required discipline. That mismatch creates failure. Fix the system. You have a choice. You can keep restarting every month. Or you can design rules that don't require restarting. Stability is built, not wished for. Once rules are in place, something shifts. Money stops feeling chaotic. Decisions become easy. Progress becomes predictable. Because you removed emotion from the equation. That's power. You're no longer fighting yourself. You're supporting yourself. Rules are not punishment. They're boundaries. Boundaries protect progress. And progress creates confidence. Now you're not guessing. You're executing. You've cut emotional spending. You've sealed leaks. You've installed rules. Now comes the next test. Delay. Because discipline isn't proven when things are easy. It's proven when you want something now and choose to wait. You've replaced motivation with rules. Now it's time to master patience. Chapter 7. Learn to delay without feeling deprived. Debt grows when you confuse want now with need now. That confusion is expensive. Most people don't lack money. They lack patience, and patience is a skill. Delay is not denial, it's discipline. Say it again. Delay is not denial, it's discipline. That's the key. People resist delay because they associate it with punishment, restriction, missing out. That belief keeps them trapped. Delay is not taking something away. It's deciding when you earn it. You have a choice. You can satisfy every impulse immediately, or you can build a system where impulse doesn't run your life. One leads to control. The other leads to debt. Most people think deprivation causes burnout. Wrong. Chaos causes burnout. Constant yes. Constant spending. Constant reacting. That drains you more than waiting ever will. That's the key. Delayed gratification doesn't mean living without joy. It means living without urgency. Urgency is the enemy. Urgency makes wants feel like needs. Urgency creates pressure. Pressure destroys discipline. When everything feels urgent, nothing is intentional. Debt thrives in urgency. You don't need their permission to slow down. You don't need approval to wait. Waiting is strength. Look at your spending history. The most damaging purchases were rarely planned. They were rushed. Sales. Emotions. Moments. I need this now. No. You wanted relief now. That's the difference. Say it clearly. It's not about desire, it's about timing. It's not about lack, it's about discipline. It's not about denial, it's about control. You have a choice. You can react to desire, or you can manage it. Managing desire is not suppression. It's training. Just like a muscle, delay builds strength. Every time you delay, you prove something to yourself. That you're in control. That's the key. Most people think freedom means getting what you want when you want it. That's not freedom. That's dependence. Freedom is wanting something and being able to wait. That's real power. Here's why delay works. Desire spikes fast. Then it fades. Spending locks it in. Delay lets it pass. When you delay, you separate emotion from decision. That's discipline. You don't need to kill desire. You just need to outlast it. You have a choice. When the urge hits, you don't decide. You schedule. You say, if I still want this in 30 days, I'll revisit it. Not to trick yourself. To respect the process. Most wants don't survive time. That's the key. Now let's address the fear. But won't I feel deprived? Only if your identity is built on consumption. Most deprivation is psychological, not practical. You're not deprived of survival. You're deprived of stimulation. And stimulation is not a need. Your brain is just used to instant reward. You retrain it. Slowly. Consistently. Without drama. Delay is training. And training is uncomfortable at first. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It means it's working. It's not about willpower. It's about exposure. You expose yourself to wanting without acting. Over time, wanting loses power. That's discipline. Delay is not denial, it's discipline. Say it again. Delay is not denial, it's discipline. You don't need their permission to build this skill. You don't need to explain why you're waiting. Waiting is your advantage. Here's a practical framework. You create a delay list. Not a wish list. A delay list. Every non-essential purchase goes there. Date, price, reason. Then you wait. No browsing. No obsessing. Just time. After 30 days you review. Most items won't matter anymore. Some will. Those that remain have earned consideration. That's the key. This removes guilt. You're not saying no. You're saying not yet. And not yet preserves control. Most people quit discipline because they feel punished. This system avoids that. You're not deprived. You're deliberate. There's a difference. Debt comes from confusing immediacy with necessity. Delay restores clarity. You have a choice. You can let desire decide timing. Or you can. Strong people choose timing. Now let's talk about burnout. Burnout doesn't come from saying no too much. It comes from constant self-betrayal. Buying things you know you shouldn't. Breaking rules. Restarting. That cycle exhausts you. Delay breaks it. Because delay keeps you aligned. You're no longer fighting yourself. You're cooperating with your long-term goals. That's the key. You don't need to eliminate enjoyment. You need to schedule it. Planned enjoyment doesn't create debt. Impulsive enjoyment does. Delay teaches you the difference. When enjoyment is earned, it's satisfying. When it's impulsive, it's empty. That's discipline. It's not about being strict. It's about being intentional. Say it clearly. It's not about pleasure, it's about patience. It's not about missing out, it's about mastery. It's not about restriction, it's about respect for your future. You have a choice. You can train yourself to need everything now. Or you can train yourself to wait and win. Delay is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger you get. And once delay becomes normal, debt loses one of its biggest weapons. Urgency. You've replaced motivation with rules. You've learned to delay without deprivation. Now there's one final mistake people make. They think the plan has to be perfect. It doesn't. It has to be followable. You've mastered patience. Now it's time to build a plan you won't abandon. Chapter 8. Build a debt exit plan that you can obey. The best plan is not the smartest plan. It's not the fastest plan. It's not the plan that looks impressive on paper. It's the plan you actually follow. That's the truth most people avoid. Complex plans fail. Simple plans survive. Say it again. Complex plans fail. Simple plans survive. That's the key. Most people don't fail because they lack information. They fail because they build plans they can't live with. They design a perfect plan for a perfect version of themselves. Motivated. Disciplined. Never tired. Never stressed. That version doesn't exist. So the plan collapses. You have a choice. You can keep building plans that impress your ego. Or you can build a plan that respects your reality. Only one leads to freedom. Debt exit plans fail for one reason. They demand too much, too fast for too long. Extreme payments. Zero flexibility. No margin. That's not discipline. That's self-punishment. And punishment always creates rebellion. That's the key. If your plan feels heavy, you won't obey it. If you don't obey it, it doesn't matter how good it is. It's not about ambition. It's about sustainability. Say it clearly. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. It's not about speed, it's about discipline. It's not about perfection, it's about obedience. You don't need their permission to choose simple. You don't need approval to slow down. Simple is powerful. Complex plans rely on motivation. Simple plans rely on structure. Rules beat willpower every time. You already learned that. Now you apply it. Here's where people go wrong. They try to optimize everything. Snowball versus avalanche. Interest calculations. Advanced spreadsheets. They spend more time planning than executing. That's avoidance disguised as productivity. The goal is not optimization. The goal is momentum. Momentum beats math. That's the key. A plan you obey at 80% beats a plan you abandon at 100%. Every time. So what does an obedient plan look like? It has three qualities: simple, predictable, forgiving. If it lacks any one of these, it breaks. Simple means you don't need constant decisions. Predictable means you know exactly what happens every month. Forgiving means one mistake doesn't destroy the system. That's discipline. You have a choice. You can design for best-case scenarios, or you can design for real life. Real life includes stress, fatigue, unexpected expenses, bad days. A plan that collapses under pressure is not a plan. It's a fantasy. That's the key. So you start with a baseline. Not aggressive, not impressive, obedient. You choose one debt strategy and stop debating it. Not because it's perfect, but because consistency matters more than method. Indecision kills momentum. Then you set a non-negotiable minimum payment toward debt. Not everything you could pay. What you will pay, every month no matter what. This is critical. Minimums create continuity. Continuity builds trust with yourself. That's the key. Anything extra is optional. Optional means flexible. Flexible means sustainable. People quit because they build plans with no breathing room. Breathing room keeps you in the game. You're not weak for needing it. You're intelligent. You don't need their permission to protect your own consistency. Now let's talk about timelines. Most people want debt gone fast. Understandable, but dangerous. Urgency recreates panic, and panic recreates bad decisions. If your timeline creates constant pressure, you will sabotage it. Debt recovery is not a sprint. It's controlled movement. Say it clearly. It's not about speed, it's about survival. It's not about pride, it's about discipline. Complex plans fail. Simple plans survive. Your plan should be boring. Same amount. Same date. Same process. Boring is good. Boring means predictable. Predictable means calm. Calm creates control. Control creates progress. That's the key. Here's another mistake. People build plans that don't account for being human. They forget joy. They forget rest. They forget that life continues. So the plan feels like prison. Prisons create escape attempts. You escape through spending. You break the plan. You feel guilty. You quit. That cycle has nothing to do with money. It's psychological. A good plan includes permission. Permission to live. Permission to adjust. Permission to continue after mistakes. You don't need their permission to build a humane system. Discipline is not cruelty. Discipline is structure that supports you under pressure. That's the key. So you add margin. A small buffer. A small allowance. A small flex category. Not because you're undisciplined. Because you're realistic. Realistic plans get followed. You also schedule reviews. Not daily. Not obsessively. Once a month. You check progress. You don't judge. You adjust. Adjustment is not failure. It's maintenance. Rigid plans snap. Adaptive plans endure. Complex plans fail. Simple plans survive. Say it again. Complex plans fail. Simple plans survive. You have a choice. You can build a plan that looks good to others, or a plan that quietly changes your life. Only one matters. Here's the test. If you imagine following this plan for the next year and feel dread, it's too aggressive. If you imagine following it and feel bored but capable, you're close. Boredom is sustainable. Dread is not. That's the key. Debt exit is not about heroic effort. It's about repeated obedience. Small actions. Done consistently. Over time. That's how patterns die. You don't escape debt by overwhelming yourself. You escape by outlasting it. And only simple plans allow that. You've learned to delay. You've installed rules. Now you've built a plan you can obey. But there's one thing left. Even with the best plan, people slip. Not if, when. What separates success from relapse is what happens next. You've built the system. Now you must prepare for failure without quitting. You built a plan you can follow. Now let's make sure one mistake doesn't destroy everything. Chapter 9, Prepare for relapse before it happens. You will slip. Not because you're weak. Not because the plan is broken. Because you're human. Everyone slips. Winners plan for it. Losers pretend they won't. That's the key. Most people don't fail because they make a mistake. They fail because they let the mistake become an excuse to quit. One mistake doesn't erase discipline, quitting does. Say it again. One mistake doesn't erase discipline, quitting does. That's the rule. Debt recovery is not a straight line. It's a series of corrections. If you expect perfection, you guarantee collapse. You have a choice. You can treat a slip as information, or you can treat it as proof you're hopeless. Only one leads forward. Most people relapse because they attach meaning to mistakes. They say, "See? I always mess this up." They spiral. They abandon the system. That reaction, not the mistake, is what recreates debt. That's the key. Strong people don't avoid mistakes. They recover fast. Speed of recovery matters more than frequency of failure. Let that sink in. If you recover in one day instead of 1 month, you just saved yourself years. Recovery is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. You don't need their permission to plan for failure. You don't need to feel ashamed. Planning for relapse is not pessimism. It's realism. Here's the dangerous belief. If I mess up, I've ruined everything. That belief destroys progress. Progress is not fragile. Ego is. Discipline survives mistakes. Ego doesn't. Say it clearly. It's not about perfection, it's about persistence. It's not about purity, it's about discipline. One mistake doesn't erase discipline, quitting does. So what does planning for relapse actually look like? It starts before anything goes wrong. You decide in advance how you will respond when it does. Because when emotions hit, thinking shuts down. That's the key. You create a relapse protocol. Not dramatic. Not complicated. 3 steps. Stop. Stabilize. Resume. No analysis. No punishment. No self-attack. Just action. Step 1. Stop. The moment you slip, you stop the bleeding. No, I already messed up, so, spending. No doubling down. No spiraling. One mistake stays one mistake. That's discipline. Step 2. Stabilize. You return to your baseline plan immediately. Not next week. Not next month. No. You don't try to compensate. You don't overcorrect. Overcorrection is ego. Stability is discipline. Step 3. Resume. You continue as if nothing happened. Because nothing did. One slip does not change your identity. That's the key. Most people turn a small mistake into a big one by reacting emotionally. They punish themselves. They restrict harder. They create pressure. Pressure causes another slip. And the cycle continues. You have a choice. You can respond calmly. Or you can respond dramatically. Drama keeps you stuck. Calm keeps you moving. One mistake doesn't erase discipline, quitting does. Now let's talk about why people don't recover fast. Shame. Shame slows recovery. Shame says, hide. Hide leads to avoidance. Avoidance leads to more mistakes. That's the loop. Discipline does not require shame. Shame is useless. Information is useful. When you slip, you ask one question. What triggered this? Not, what's wrong with me? Not, why can't I do this? Those questions lead nowhere. Triggers create leverage. Fatigue, stress, hunger, boredom, social pressure. You identify the trigger. You adjust the system. That's the key. You don't fix behavior by attacking character. You fix behavior by fixing environment. Say it clearly. It's not about weakness, it's about preparation. It's not about failure, it's about discipline. You don't need their permission to be strategic instead of emotional. Another truth. Most relapses happen after progress. Confidence rises. Guard drops. Rules loosen. That's predictable. Which means it's manageable. You plan for success too. When things go well, you maintain rules. You don't relax them. Relaxation invites regression. That's discipline. You have a choice. You can treat success as a reward or as a responsibility. Only one keeps you stable. Now let's address the restart myth. People love restarting. New month. New plan. Fresh start. Restarts feel clean. But restarts erase momentum. You don't need a fresh start. You need continuity. Continuity is power. One mistake doesn't require a reset. It requires a return. That's the key. You never go back to zero unless you choose to. Debt returns when people quit, not when they slip. If you can stay in the system will work. Even imperfectly. Especially imperfectly. Discipline is proven under imperfection. That's where identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries, and start seeing yourself as someone who continues. That identity is bulletproof. You don't need their permission to adopt it. So when relapse happens, and it will, remember this. Stop. Stabilize. Resume. No story. No shame. No drama. One mistake doesn't erase discipline, quitting does. Say it one last time. One mistake doesn't erase discipline, quitting does. You've learned how to slow down. You've identified patterns. You've removed emotional spending. You've sealed leaks. You've built rules. You've learned to delay. You've built a plan. You've prepared for relapse. Now there's only one thing left. Redefining what success actually means. Because if you define success wrong, you'll always feel behind, even when you're winning. You've learned how to recover. Now it's time to define control itself. Chapter 10. Redefine what financial control actually means. Most people think control means zero debt. That's incomplete. Control is not the absence of debt. It's the presence of discipline. Freedom is control, not excess. Say it again. Freedom is control, not excess. That's the key. You can be debt-free and still reckless. You can have money and still be panicked. You can earn more and still feel out of control. Because control is not a number. It's a behavior. And behavior is revealed under pressure. You have a choice. You can define success by balances. Or you can define it by how you act when things get hard. Only one definition lasts. Most people chase the feeling of enough. Enough money. Enough safety. Enough margin. They think once they reach it, peace arrives. It doesn't. Because peace is not purchased. It's practiced. That's the key. If your sense of control disappears the moment stress hits, you never had control. You had comfort. Comfort is fragile. Control is durable. Say it clearly. It's not about being debt-free, it's about being disciplined. It's not about wealth, it's about behavior. It's not about excess, it's about control. You don't need their permission to redefine success. You don't need approval to stop chasing appearances. Appearances are expensive. Control is quiet. Most people measure progress by what they can buy. Disciplined people measure progress by what they no longer react to. Impulses, pressure, comparison, fear. That's mastery. You have a choice. You can build a life that looks rich, or a life that feels stable. Stability outperforms image every time. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people are not stressed because they lack money. They're stressed because they lack control. They don't trust themselves under pressure. They don't trust their decisions when emotions spike. So every financial situation feels dangerous. Control removes danger. That's the key. When you are intentional under pressure, money stops being dramatic. Unexpected expenses become manageable. Income changes don't trigger panic. Decisions slow down. You respond instead of react. That's freedom. Freedom is not having unlimited options. It's having rules you trust. Rules you follow. Rules that protect you when your emotions are loud. You've built those rules. Now you live them. You don't need their permission to stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison destroys control. Someone will always have more. Someone will always spend more. Someone will always look ahead. If your definition of success depends on external reference points, you will always feel behind. That's not motivation. That's sabotage. Freedom is control, not excess. Say it again. Freedom is control, not excess. Control means you can delay without suffering. Control means you can say no without spiraling. Control means you can make decisions without urgency. Control means you are not impressed by your own impulses. That's power. Now let's be clear about something. Being intentional under pressure doesn't mean being rigid. It means being deliberate. You adjust when necessary. You don't abandon structure. You bend. You don't break. That's discipline. Rigid people snap. Disciplined people adapt. You have a choice. You can chase a finish line, or you can build a standard. Finish lines disappear. Standards stay. Most people think, once I'm debt-free I'll relax. That's how debt returns. Because the behavior didn't change, only the circumstances did. You already know this. You've seen it. Payoff. Relief. Relaxation. Regression. That cycle ends when control becomes the goal. Not zero. Not excess. Control. That's the key. So what does success look like now? It looks like calm decision-making. It looks like boring consistency. It looks like predictability. It looks like not needing to prove anything. You don't need their permission to live quietly. You don't need validation to be disciplined. Discipline is its own reward. When control is the goal, numbers become feedback, not identity. Debt balances are information. Income is information. Expenses are information. None of them define you. Behavior defines you. Say it clearly. It's not about the numbers, it's about the system. It's not about freedom later, it's about control now. You have a choice. You can wait for life to feel safe. Or you can become someone who acts safely regardless. One depends on circumstances. The other depends on you. Control creates confidence. Confidence reduces stress. Reduced stress improves decisions. It compounds. That's real wealth. And here's the final shift. When you redefine control, you stop asking, how much can I afford? You start asking, does this align with who I am now? Identity-based decisions last. That's the key. You're no longer someone trying to escape debt. You're someone who operates with intention. Debt becomes irrelevant over time, not because you ignore it, but because your behavior starves it. Freedom is control, not excess. Say it one last time. Freedom is control, not excess. You've walked through every layer. You stopped treating debt like an emergency. You admitted the pattern. You separated survival from sabotage. You removed emotion from money. You sealed leaks. You replaced motivation with rules. You learned to delay. You built a plan you can obey. You prepared for relapse. And now you've redefined control. There's nothing left to chase. Only something to practice. Every day. Quietly. Under pressure. You have a choice. You can return to old definitions. Or you can live by this one. Choose control. And don't give it back. Debt did not steal your future. Discipline gave it away, and discipline can take it back. You don't need another trick. You don't need another excuse. You need control. Control over spending. Control over emotions. Control over decisions, especially when it's uncomfortable. This audiobook gave you the framework. Now the responsibility is yours. The challenge is simple. For the next 30 days, act like a person who is done negotiating with debt. No drama. No shortcuts. No self-betrayal. Because the moment you stop reacting and start controlling, debt stops being your identity. Take control. And don't give it back.